At this place in history, we're back on Mine Road in South Strafford with Steve Perkins, the executive director of the Vermont Historical Society. And Steve, we've come here before to learn about the history of the former Elizabeth Mine, which we're very close to, but a different aspect of that site in this area is what brings us here this week.
Well, yeah, Mike, as we learned in our previous segment that there were lots and lots of tailings and ore remnants that were pulled out of this mine. Ultimately, that caused an environmental issue, and so this whole site has been remediated by the EPA and turned into both a solar site, but also a historic site with great interpretation. We're going to go talk to Steve Willbanks, the president of the Strafford Historical Society.
When the copperas particularly, because it was a more primitive extraction method, they released a lot of acids and heavy metals. And so it was this acid mine and drainage, and because you had piled up these tailings in various places, and they were quite high, they were full of water as well as this acid mine drainage, and it had to go somewhere. So it would ooze out, and following this valley down to the Pompanousek River.
You've told us you were on the select board during and throughout the remediation process, and a very lengthy one at that. So how did that look? What did it entail?
It became a Superfund site officially, I guess, in 2002. Some points it says 2001, but there was quite a bit of study beforehand. There turned out to be a certain amount of opposition. There were referendums at town meeting about whether to continue with it or not. And the price tag kept getting more because they discovered it was much more complicated than they had originally thought. Because of the opposition, it enabled the EPA to get further funds to do more analysis of what was going on when they've been challenged on some of their planning. And that actually made for a much better project because they were able to use funds they would not otherwise be able to access.
The Superfund remediation effort only officially concluded very recently. I think it was only within the last year or so.
Well, that's right. About a year ago is when they decided that they had finished. They were still a few little projects that they were working on probably until this spring.
What I think is fascinating as director of the Vermont Historical Society is how the local society here got involved in the project. So it's not just a cleanup in a solar field.
Part of that was this, where we're staying right now is an easement the Historical Society has. This is the first place the interpretive panels were set up. And we worked sort of hand in hand with the EPA and their researchers. So when they needed information, we provided it. They provided us with a lot of things that we would have gotten otherwise. He would like to someday have a museum in that change house. It's the one building that's still standing over there.
Should anyone come to this wonderful overlook point and like what they see here on the interpretive signage and want to learn more about what happened here at the Elizabeth Mine and what has continued to happen in very, very recent times, how can they learn it?
Well, at the present, probably the best way beyond what you see here would be to look at our website at straffordvthistory.org.
A copper mine that closed in 1958 is now cleaned up at this place in history.